I never thought I'd be the kind of person who'd let someone basically move into my apartment without saying a word about it. But here we are, 6 months later, and Kieran's toothbrush is still sitting next to mine in the bathroom like it belongs there. Like he belongs here. It started on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were my favourite day at the office, the one day when the morning meeting didn't drag on forever, and I could actually get work done. Kieran had been at the company for about 3 months at that point, working 2 desks over from me in the marketing department. We'd done the usual coworker thing, small talk by the coffee machine, the occasional lunch in the break room complaining about our boss's obsession with synergy and circle backs. He seemed nice enough, funny, had this way of making even the most boring project debrief feel less soul-crushing. That Tuesday afternoon he came up to my desk looking rough. I mean, Kieran was always put together, always had that effortlessly styled thing going on with his dark hair, always wore these perfectly fitted button-downs that made me look down at my own rumpled shirt and wonder why I even bothered. But that day, his eyes were red-rimmed and he had this tightness around his mouth that I recognised. The trying not to fall apart look. "Hey man," he said, and his voice was quieter than usual. "Can I ask you something kind of weird?" I spun my chair around to face him fully. "Sure, what's up?" He glanced around the office, checking if anyone was listening, then leaned in slightly. "My roommate and I just had a massive blowout. Like a really bad one. I need to get out of there for the night, let things cool down. I know this is completely out of nowhere, but is there any chance I could crash on your couch tonight? Just one night. I'll be gone first thing in the morning." Here's the thing. I should have asked more questions. I should have suggested a hotel or asked if he had other friends he could stay with. But the way he was looking at me, with this mixture of embarrassment and desperation, something in my chest twisted. And maybe it was because I'd noticed the way his smile lit up his whole face during meetings, or the way he always remembered how I took my coffee, or maybe it was just because I'm apparently incapable of saying no to a pretty face. But I heard myself saying, "Yeah, of course, no problem at all." The relief that washed over his face made something warm bloom in my stomach. "Thank you so much, Dylan. Seriously, I owe you big time." That night, he showed up at my apartment with a backpack and a 6-pack of beer as a thank you gift. We ordered pizza, sat on my couch that I'd bought secondhand and never really loved until I saw him curled up on one end of it, and we talked. Really talked. Not the surface-level coworker stuff, but real conversation. He told me about growing up in a small town in Oregon, about how he'd moved to the city to escape expectations and find himself. I told him about my family, about how I'd always felt like I was performing a version of myself that everyone expected rather than just being me. "I get that," he said, his green eyes catching the light from my terrible IKEA lamp. "The performance thing. It's exhausting, right?" "Completely exhausting," I agreed. And for a moment we just looked at each other, and I felt this pull, this magnetic thing that I'd been trying to ignore at work. Up close, in the soft lighting of my living room, I could see the small scar above his left eyebrow, the exact shade of gold in his eyes, the way his lips curved even when he wasn't quite smiling. I looked away first, reaching for another slice of pizza I didn't really want. One night turned into 2. The roommate situation was apparently worse than he'd initially let on. Then it was 3 nights, 4. By the end of the first week, I'd cleared out a drawer in my dresser without him asking, just put his folded laundry in there like it was the most natural thing in the world. He noticed, didn't say anything, just gave me this soft smile that made my heart do something complicated in my chest. We fell into a routine so easily it scared me. He'd make coffee in the morning while I was in the shower, always getting the ratio just right, stronger than most people made it because he'd paid attention to how I made it for myself. I'd cook dinner most nights because I actually enjoyed it, and he claimed he'd burn water if left unsupervised. We'd sit on the couch, ostensibly watching whatever show we were binging, but really just talking over it, our legs somehow always ending up pressed together in the middle cushion, neither of us acknowledging it or moving away. At work, we kept things professional, maybe too professional. We'd avoid each other's eyes in meetings, keep our distance by the coffee machine. I think we both knew that if anyone at the office saw the way we were at my apartment, the easy intimacy of it, they'd know. They'd see right through whatever this was that we were both pretending wasn't happening. About 2 months in, I woke up one Saturday morning to find Kieran already awake, sitting on the couch with his laptop working on some freelance project he'd mentioned. The morning light was streaming through my windows, hitting his profile, and I just stood there in the doorway of my bedroom watching him. The way he bit his lower lip when he concentrated. The way his fingers moved across the keyboard. The way he'd pushed his hair back and it was sticking up slightly on one side. He looked up, caught me staring, and smiled. "Morning, I made coffee." "You always make coffee," I said, my voice still rough with sleep. "Yeah, well, you let me live here rent-free, it's the least I can do." I should have said something then. Should have asked about his plans, about when he was going to find a new place, about what we were doing. Instead, I just said, "You don't have to do anything. I like having you here." The words hung in the air between us. His smile shifted into something softer, more vulnerable. "I like being here." We didn't talk about it after that. Didn't define it or put labels on it. He just stayed. Month 3 was when things started shifting in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. Little things. He started doing this thing where he'd touch my lower back when he moved past me in the kitchen. I'd find myself standing closer to him than necessary when we were cooking together. We'd both reach for the remote at the same time and our hands would brush, and neither of us would pull away immediately. One night we were watching some action movie, something with explosions and a plot neither of us were following, and I realised his head was resting on my shoulder. I don't know when it had happened. The gradual lean, the settling of weight. My arm was along the back of the couch, not quite around him but almost. I could smell his shampoo, something clean and cedar-scented. I could feel the warmth of him against my side. I stopped breathing for a second, afraid that if I moved, if I acknowledged it, he'd pull away. But he didn't. He actually shifted closer, and I felt his hand come to rest on my knee, casual, like it belonged there. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. I let my arm drop from the back of the couch to his shoulders, a movement that felt both terrifying and inevitable. He made this small sound, almost a sigh, and relaxed into me completely. We stayed like that for the rest of the movie. Neither of us mentioned it afterward. He went to the bathroom to brush his teeth. I set up his blankets on the couch like I did every night, even though by this point we both had to know it was ridiculous that he was still sleeping out here. We said goodnight. I went to my bedroom and lay awake for hours, replaying the weight of his head on my shoulder, the warmth of his hand on my knee. The next morning, we didn't talk about it. We just did it again the next night, and the night after that. It became our new normal, this cuddling that we both pretended wasn't cuddling, this intimacy that we didn't name. Month 4, my sister came to visit. She took one look at Kieran, at the way he moved around my apartment like he lived there, because he did, at the way we orbited each other in the kitchen, at the drawer full of his clothes and his shoes by the door and his books on my shelf, and she pulled me aside. "So," she said, her eyebrow raised in that way that meant she wasn't buying whatever excuse I was about to give. "How long have you two been together?" "We're not together," I said automatically. "He's just crashing here temporarily." She looked at me like I was the dumbest person she'd ever met. "Dylan, he's been here 4 months. You look at him like he hung the moon. He made you coffee this morning without asking how you take it. You have a whole system going with the dishes. Either you're together or you're both idiots." "Maybe we're both idiots," I muttered. She softened a little, put her hand on my arm. "Hey, I've never seen you this happy. Whatever this is, don't run from it just because it's scary, okay?" After she left, I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. Was I happy? I looked around my apartment, at the signs of Kieran everywhere, at how my space had become our space without me really noticing. At the hoodie of his draped over my chair, at the 2 coffee mugs in the sink from this morning, at the way the place felt warm and lived in a way it never had when it was just me. Yeah, I was happy. Happier than I'd been in years, maybe ever. That night, Kieran ordered Thai food from our usual place, the one we'd started calling our usual place like we were a couple, and we settled onto the couch. He pressed against my side immediately now, no hesitation, and I wrapped my arm around him, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Can I ask you something?" he said during a commercial break. "Sure." He was quiet for a moment, and I felt him tense slightly. "Do you ever think about what happens next, like, with this situation?" My heart started racing. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've been here 6 months, Dylan. I'm not looking for a new place. I haven't been looking for a new place for a while now, and I know we haven't talked about it, but I think we need to." I swallowed hard. "Okay, let's talk about it." He shifted so he could look at me, and the vulnerability in his eyes made my chest ache. "I don't want to leave. I know I said one night, and I know this whole thing has been weird and undefined, but I don't want to leave. I like my life here. With you. I don't want you to leave either, I said, the words coming out barely above a whisper. But I need to know what this is, he continued. Because from where I'm sitting, this feels like more than roommates. It feels like more than friends. And maybe I'm reading this completely wrong. Maybe you're just a really generous person who lets people live with them indefinitely, but I don't think that's what this is. I looked at him, really looked at him, at the hope and fear mixed together in his expression, at the way he was holding himself so carefully, like he was braced for rejection. And I thought about the last 6 months, about how he'd become the best part of my day, about how I fell asleep thinking about him in the next room and woke up looking forward to seeing him, about how somewhere along the way, without either of us saying it out loud, I'd fallen completely in love with him. You're not reading it wrong, I said. This is definitely more than roommates. His breath caught. Yeah? Yeah. Kieran, I've been half in love with you since about week 2. I just didn't know how to say it. Didn't know if you felt the same way, he laughed, this relieved, slightly disbelieving sound. Week 2? Try day 3 for me. I kept telling myself I'd find a new place, that I was overstaying my welcome, but I couldn't make myself leave. Every day I'd wake up and think, okay, today I'll start looking at apartments, and then you'd make that stupid joke about the copier at work, or you'd cook dinner and ask me about my day like you actually cared, and I'd think, just one more day. I always cared, I said. I care about everything when it comes to you. We were close now, so close I could count his eyelashes, could see the flecks of darker green in his eyes. So what now? He asked. Now I kiss you, I said, if that's okay. That's very okay, he whispered. I closed the distance between us, pressed my lips to his, and it was like everything clicked into place. 6 months of tension and unspoken feelings and careful distance all dissolved. He kissed me back like he'd been waiting for this just as long as I had, his hand coming up to cup my jaw, his fingers threading through my hair. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, he smiled at me, that full, genuine smile that I'd fallen for. So, about the rent situation, he said. Should we talk about me actually paying half? I laughed. We should probably talk about a lot of things, like the fact that you've been sleeping on the couch for 6 months when there's a perfectly good bed in the next room. He raised an eyebrow. Is that an invitation? It's 6 months overdue, I said. That night he didn't sleep on the couch. We lay in my bed, his head on my chest, my fingers running through his hair, and talked until the early hours of the morning, about how we'd both been afraid to ruin what we had by wanting more, about how we'd both been pretending this was temporary, when we'd both known for months it wasn't, about how sometimes the best things in life come from saying yes to one night, and then having the courage to let it become forever. I can't believe I almost didn't ask you, he said sleepily. I almost asked Marcus from accounting instead. Marcus from accounting, I said, mock offended. You would have deprived me of the best 6 months of my life for Marcus from accounting. He tilted his head up to kiss my jaw. Good thing I have better judgment than that. The best judgment, I agreed. It's been a year now since that first night. We've made it official, told our friends and family, dealt with the knowing looks from my sister, who absolutely said I told you so. At work we're still professional, but everyone knows. It's hard to hide the way he looks at me, the way I look at him. His name is on the lease now. His toothbrush doesn't just sit next to mine, it belongs there. Just like he belongs here. We've replaced my terrible couch with one we picked out together. His books are mixed in with mine on the shelves. The apartment isn't just mine anymore, it's ours. Sometimes I think about that Tuesday afternoon, about him standing at my desk looking lost and asking for one night, about how I could have said no, could have suggested alternatives, could have kept my life simple and solitary, about how that one small yes changed everything. Last night we were on our new couch, his head on my shoulder in that position that's become as natural as breathing, and he said, "Thank you." For what? I asked. For saying yes, for letting me stay, for being patient while I figured out how to tell you how I felt. I kissed the top of his head. Thank you for asking, for staying, for making my coffee every morning and making my apartment feel like home. Our apartment, he corrected. Our apartment, I agreed. He was right. It had been our apartment from the beginning, really. From that first night when he curled up on my couch and we talked until midnight. I just hadn't known it yet. Hadn't known that one night would turn into forever, that my coworker would become my person, that saying yes to someone who needed a place to crash would lead to finding exactly where I belonged. Sometimes the best things in life start with a simple question, and a yes that changes everything. Kieran asked to crash at my place for one night. It's been a year now, and if I have my way, he'll still be here in 50 more, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way.